Hi everyone, still a standing crowd. There are some seats available, so don't bother. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been living in Saudi for the last 8 months. It's another challenge. I'm running the King Abdullah University's Accelerator program. We do a little bit more high-tech and IP-based startups, but that's not why we're here. Anyways, find me on Twitter if you have any questions. I'm here with Nicolas. We had a nice chat a couple of days ago, and I think you're going to like the angles. The first thing I want to ask is, if you know the story of BlaBlaCar, it started in France, and then it kind of grew up to this multi-million-dollar investable company, and now it's expanding. But everything relies on the team first, and they have a pretty unique team setting. Want to talk more about how you got together, what are your interests, what keeps you together so strong?
Yeah, so the story of the team actually is probably different from most startups here, especially most startups that go into like acceleration programs or boot camps or all these things, because we actually formed the team over almost 5 years, right? So, and in fact, technically, if you look at, the shareholder agreement of BlaBlaCar, we have 7 co-founders, but we never sort of let go anyone, right? It was sort of this formation process that ended up with 3 sort of managing co-founders. So the story really started in around 2005. So that was really sort of the idea and the first website, which was very much a classified website. And it was actually done by Fred, which is one of the co-founders that really started the story. And he started the story with another guy actually initially. And then essentially they both had a different job and they both worked on the project pretty slowly. And then we met, actually the 3 of us, Fred, Francis and I, around early 2007, late 2006.
In INSEAD.
Yeah, so Fred and I met doing an MBA. So in business school, so same thing, no one was full-time on the project back then. And that was the first time we thought of BlaBlaCar, which was not even called BlaBlaCar actually back then, as a business. So as the first time we thought like, okay, that's a business and maybe we can create a company out of that. And that's was the company was formed. So technically like the first 2 years there was not even a company, it was just a project. And then it took still a lot of time because I ended up working in venture capital after that. Yep. Fred was finishing his studies, Francis was working for another tech company. So we had actually the first employee in the first office in early 2009 and the first angel round in mid-2009. So essentially from like what you could call the early start and the first angel funding took us like 4.5 years, which is lots of time. And then after that, it was like the typical story, the more typical story of a startup where we've grown the product, we proved actually the use case in a market that for us was France. And then for my part, I actually joined the team a bit later. I joined the team in 2011. Yep. And the key mission or my obsession back then was, how do we make this company not just a French company, but how do we make that a European company, at least initially a European company. So I was obsessed by, okay, how do we not make BlaBlaCar just what I call like a single country winner, and how do we make that a European winner? How do we make that a company that really matters on a global scale? And then we started to expand and fundraise, and that's maybe the story that's most well known about BlaBlaCar is the last couple of years.
And the team story is usually, we tell, you should spend a lot of time together. This is not an easy thing to find a co-founder. We already created some events, so standalone entrepreneurs find co-founders. But after finding that right mix, then becomes the financing problems. Again, that story is also a little bit different than what we usually observe when you first have the angel round and then kind of the Series A, pre-Series A round. That also worked a lot different than usually what we observe.
Yeah, so the first thing to mention about BlaBlaCar is we were doing something new, right? New in the sense that, today, so for those who don't know BlaBlaCar, essentially it's a marketplace between drivers and passengers, and it's long-distance ride-sharing. So drivers essentially driving from, say, Istanbul to Ankara would offer the empty seats to passengers going the same way. And no one knew, it was kind of called hitchhiking back in the 70s, but no one was doing that at scale in any country, essentially, except probably Germany was the only country where people were kind of doing that. So the challenge initially is you pitch a business concept and you cannot demonstrate any market size. Right? So you cannot say like, here's how many people are going to do that. So it was pretty hard for us to convince investors, especially in 2009 post-Lehman Brothers, that, okay, just finance this company, it's going to work and our market is big. Yep. And the first feedback we get from lots of people actually, but investors was, hey guys, if you get 100,000 people to use that in France, you're lucky.
Usual story.
So you have good degrees, just go get a job and stop screwing around essentially. And of course we did not listen, and we we started to build the company. But then the key thing I've seen working in 7 years in Silicon Valley and being a VC is most companies fail actually for something you don't expect, right? So you don't fail because of competition or things like that. Sometimes you fail because you don't have enough scale fast enough. Yep. And sometimes you fail because you just ran out of cash. And most companies fail because they run out of cash. And so the obsession was always like, how do we fundraise early, right? How do we find early believers in the company and fundraise early and make sure we always have the gas to go faster? And every time it was a surprise, like when we fundraised $10 million from Accel 3 years ago, people were like in France, it was like, what the hell did you tell them? And what was the story? What did they invest in? Because back then we had like a pretty small community in France. We had no business model, no revenue, but we had a good team, right? We had a pretty credible team. And what Accel back by then was clearly not like a revenue. It was traction, but it was traction of users in a single market. Yep. And they really backed the potential of scaling that all over Europe. And that's what we've done in the next few years. Before
that round, like how many times have you been rejected by VCs? Although your background is like in VC and you reject 95% of it, I'm sure it took you a lot of time to again convince.
Actually, it's funny because we've never done the usual process. I mean, essentially, we never went fundraising. We were always fundraising. So in a way, I think that's the interesting thing. Like, I think never in the time of BlaBlaCar, I thought like, okay, we're going to start fundraising and we're going to start like pitching to VCs. It was always like, to me, the angels or VCs are part of the ecosystem, and you need to talk to these guys all the time, essentially, because the best investors. And what I mean the best investors, the guy you want on your board actually.
Emerge.
Well, also they tend to invest in a movie and not in a picture, right? So if you just go fundraise, essentially you give them a picture and you say, well, here's the story right now, please invest. Whereas if you talk to someone for a year or two, you say, well, here's what I'm going to do, here's what I'm going to try to build with this company, and if they've seen you like 2 or 3 times,
doing what you told,
then it gets a lot easier. So in fact, we never get rejected because we never actually use advisors and went pitching to like 20 or 30 different VCs. We had very targeted relationships with guys like Accel or Index or some others.
And the funding part is also critical in your international expansion because you have created this team and then got funding, found the business model, got traction in France, and then expanded first country, second country. Then you start needing the money because it's kind of you need the money first to get traction. Then once you have the unit economics working, then you can go fast. How does it work actually for you to kind of find the right people in different countries, invest in them, kind of convince them that this is going to be a part of a bigger journey, and then blend them in your own culture? Now you're more than 100 people. You're kind of an international identity. It's kind of shifting with every new country. Your percentage of different countries in the team is changing. How do you balance that culture and how do you balance that move from one country to the other?
The thing we've done so there are a couple of questions here. I mean, the thing we've done about expansion, I mean, the first choice we made was to expand early, right? So we decided, like, essentially we had the first employee in France in 2009. 2010 we were in Spain, 2011 we were in the UK, 2012 we acquired like 2 companies and expanded all over Eastern Europe and in Germany and so on and so on. So we had like this very rapid expansion, and we always wanted to fund that expansion before we expand to never run out of cash, which is again which is a key thing. And we've done that with, we had an interesting strategy I think, which was acqui-hiring, right? So which is pretty rare for a startup where even though you have like a 20 or 30 people company, you already start thinking like, okay, maybe one way to grow is to go acquire companies.
For those of you who may not know, acqui-hiring is acquisition, but actually acquisition, acquiring the whole talent, whole team, and putting it a part of the company.
Yeah, and it leads to interesting discussions actually, because every time we talk to, like when we talk to the Polish guys, when we talk to the Russian guys, you end up actually not valuing their member base or anything like that, right? So every time we had these interesting discussions where the guys were like, oh, we have like 20 or 30 or 50,000 members, and you end up saying, I don't really care. Actually, even if you have 100,000 or 10,000 members, what I really value is you, and you joining the team.
That's new.
And if you look at that strategy, actually, companies like Google or Cisco have done that, right? So maybe it's not advertised all that much, but Cisco has built Cisco by acquiring hundreds of companies in Silicon Valley and integrating that into the Cisco metrics and the culture. So that's very much a model we follow. Is we don't think that we're going to invent everything and get the best people. Sometimes the best innovation, the best teams are out there, and we just need to convince them to join the adventure. So we've done that 4 times already in 3 years in the history of BlaBlaCar, and we'll do more of that.
One thing that maybe as a kind of wrap-up question, we might not have time for Q&A, is one of the things that we discussed before was the growth in any country is unpredictable when you enter. And when you look at that, what you have experienced in different countries might indicate what will happen in the next one. But in terms of either in the acquisition side or in what you have not been able to do for BlaBlaCar in a couple of years, what do you think you kind of missed, but you're kind of renewing and changing the dynamics?
So about knowing the countries, because we do something new. I mean, when we come to a new country like Turkey, I mean, we launched Turkey just last week. We launched Russia like a few months ago. No one is actually doing what we offer initially, right? So no one is actually ride-sharing between cities. So you create this new behavior, and it's almost impossible to predict how fast it's going to go, if it's going to go at all, and what's going to be the adoption of that. So we don't even try to model that. Essentially, the mindset we have is you need to try. I mean, there is so much analysis you can do at the end of the day. Yep. So at some point you just need to try, launch a new country, think of that as a startup within the startup, and that's the way we do that with a local team actually driving that effort. So today we have a team in Istanbul, we have a team in Moscow, we have 9 teams actually across the globe just launching BlaBlaCar in different regions. And we never really have, I never come in thinking the budget is going to be this or the target is going to be that. Essentially, I would say my job is to make sure we have enough to scale if we can. So Russia, we did not anticipate Russia would go that fast. Now we're investing a lot more into Russia because it's scaling at the speed of light, right? So if it doesn't, then we don't retrench. Essentially, what we do is we're going to invest a bit less, get feedback from the users. I mean, we've heard listen to your users essentially. We get feedback from the user, we adapt the product, we adapt the marketing message, and then we try again.
Yeah. So what can this crowd do for you? What do you need?
Well, first we need people in Turkey. So if you're looking to join a startup in a startup, we're looking for people in Turkey. And I would say, I think at an event like that, it's start your company, because I was yesterday actually at the European Commission, and there was this big speech about, this big theme about how do we make Europe a single digital market, and how do we make Europe a better place for entrepreneurs?
Unified.
A very unified place, which is very interesting because essentially today, if we want to become relevant, and Europe in the wide sense, right? I think it applies to any country. If we want to be relevant, we need to build global companies, or at least European in the wide sense companies, because otherwise, if you just build a Turkish company or a French company or a German company, at the end of the day, we're going to be irrelevant against US competitors, against Alibaba from China, biggest IPO in the world. So we cannot stay and build local companies. So I would say you guys should just expand quickly. I mean, the Arabic market is huge, right? If you think of Middle East, it's a huge market. Maybe this place is one of the best places to launch and grab this big piece of the world, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good note to end. Following kind of Dave's calls, a good place you are in. You need to work a lot. You need to think of funding and expansion as fast as you can. And I think with that, we're going to go to the next. Sorry, we don't have any questions and answers, but Nicolas has a team already here. So before they leave, just grab them. They're looking for people, talented people to get into the BlaBlaCar family. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.